What's up, guys? D-Rock1992 here. For this next video, I'm going to be reviewing the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, or the Hunger Games 3, which is going to be divided into two parts. The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2 is coming out next year, November 20th. So look out for that movie, which is going to be big. But this one was a highly anticipated part one of the third movie as well. With the success of Hunger Games 1, came out 2012, and the Hunger Games Catching Fire, which came out last year, there's a lot of anticipation for Mockingjay Part 1. And overall, the reviews for it were kind of mixed. Surprisingly, kind of mixed. 65% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'll kind of talk about it afterwards. But a lot of the same characters return during this movie. Jennifer Lawrence, of course, Liam Hemsworth, Josh Hutcherson, Donald Sutherland, Woody Harrelson, Elizabeth Banks, and then there's a big new character who is President Al McCoy, the leader of the rebellion against the Capitol, the president, who is played by Julianne Moore. So without further ado, I'm going to get right into it. And I'm going to start off with the Hunger Games, a little bit of the ending of the Hunger Games Catching Fire. I'm going to get into that, since I didn't really get into it in the Hunger Games Catching Fire. Katniss Everdeen escapes, essentially, in the Hunger Games Catching Fire. She is rescued by the rebellion. And in the process, however, they unfortunately leave behind Peeta Mellark and two other characters, two of the other Hunger Games allies that Katniss Everdeen and Peeta Mellark were teamed up with in the second movie. And President Al McCoy, and who is revealed in the second movie at the ending, the character of Philip Seymour Hoffman in the second movie was originally thought to be an ally of the Capitol, but in fact he is a double agent. He works for the rebellion. So Hoffman's character, Plutarch his name is, I believe, and President Al McCoy, they try to persuade Katniss Everdeen at first to be their Mockingjay, the symbol of their rebellion, in order to get more hope for the rebellion and get a large uprising against the Capitol. And at first, Katniss declines the offer. She flat out refuses because the rebellion left Peeta behind and the other two characters behind. In a way to convince her to be their Mockingjay, President Al McCoy, Plutarch convinces President Al McCoy to let Katniss go into the battlefield and see for herself how the rebellion is doing against the Capitol. So Katniss, she goes into District 7, I believe, in their fight against the Capitol, and she sees that the Capitol has done a lot of damage. Hope is lost. You can kind of see that hope has been really lost in District 7 because there's a lot of dead bodies that she sees, all scattered around. The place is in ruins. And then there's this underground hospital that has a lot of the wounded, and on the outside of it, there's obviously a lot of dead people. This kind of changes. This is the big thing of what changes Katniss's mind. So she changes her mind, and she decides to be the Mockingjay. And together, she and the rebellion, they devise plans. They devise propaganda to get people on their side and get people to join the rebellion against the capital and get a big uprising. So this is really, I mean, there's not a whole lot of action in the movie. It's a very political movie. The first two were action in the Hunger Games themselves. There were scenes in the first two Hunger Games where it was pretty action-packed. This movie doesn't really have a lot of it. And therein lies the criticism of the movie, that it didn't have a lot of action. That it was a political movie. And it was, definitely. But it did what it was supposed to do, I think. You know, this is the movie where the rebellion really hits. I mean, they have a rebellion against the Capitol. There's a battle scene where they kill a lot of the Capitol troops, and they take out the dam that supplies the Capitol with electricity and power. And they're out of power for a while, definitely. And definitely, there's that one little scene there. Throughout the whole movie, you just see a lot of the political undertones and a lot of the people just tired of the Capitol taking over and really making a bad situation worse. The Capitol making a bad situation worse. But I kind of have to reveal the last part, because I'm going to, next year, if I still have this channel, which I think I still will, I'm going to be reviewing Mockingjay Part 2. I probably will, if I go see it. At the end, PETA and the other two Hunger Games participants are rescued by the rebellion because the Capitol lets them do it. And the Capitol lets them rescue those three because PETA in particular has a situation where has a bad situation put on him. And I'm not going to reveal any more about that, because you gotta watch the movie for yourself, definitely, to see what happens there. And so the ending really is where they are rescued, and the rebellion really kicks. The rebellion really starts in Part 1. Part 2 is going to be where it all culminates, obviously, because it is the last movie of the Hunger Games series. So overall, I mean, I went into it expecting action, definitely. I think I did. You know, because the first two had some action scenes. There weren't a whole lot of action scenes in the movie. This was a very political movie. Normally, I would say that not having a lot of action in the movie is not really that great, because I like action, it's very good, but the movie was good without a whole lot of it. I mean, I got the message, I got the inspiration. You know, you want the rebellion to defeat the Capitol, you want them to do good in this movie, in Part 2. So Part 1 really sets it up. And I think it's getting a bad rap in some ways because there isn't a lot of action. A lot of people have to understand that Part 1 is the start of everything. You know, the start of the big time rebellion. You know, it's the building blocks. Part 1 is the building blocks of what Part 2 is going to be. And that's what people have to understand, definitely, with Part 1. You know, and thinking about it, could there have been a little more action? Yeah, definitely. You know, could there have been a little bit more action? Yes, probably. But it didn't really, it didn't have it, and that's okay. I mean, I didn't care as much as I would with other movies, um, because this movie's just a very good political movie. Um, and it's good subdued action. You know, there's a lot of dialogue in the movie, lot more dialogue than the first two. But it's subdued and it's good. It just sets up events for the second movie, for the second part, and I think they're really making this like the Harry Potter series. The seventh one, the seventh book, part one in the Harry Potter series, really set up the events of part two. Part two was a lot better than the first part, in my opinion. There was a lot more action in it. But part one, for what it was, it set up the events very well for part two. And that's what Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 does going into Part 2. It sets up the events. It does what it needs to do. And I really couldn't find a problem with the movie in general. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 stars. It really does set things up for the finale. If they're making the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2 a ultimate showdown, just like Harry Potter Part 2 of the 7th book, the 8th movie, Harry Potter Part 2, if they're doing anything like that, then you fans are in for a treat with Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. You know, if they do it like Harry Potter Part 2 of the 7th book, turn into the movie, you're going to be in for a treat. You are going to really like it a lot, and that's what I hope that they do for Part 2. For sure. And that is it for this review of Mockingjay Part 1. D-Rock 1992 out.